Hi and welcome to this channel. Today I'm gonna keep watching the Napoleon series from Epic History TV, and this is the, not pinnacle of Napoleon's might, but this is one of his masterpieces, which is Austerlitz, right? This is jumping forward in time, right? From, what was it, 1793, right? To 1805. So original videos down below, and let's get into this.
An Epic History TV History March collaboration, supported by our sponsor, The Great Courses Plus.
Okay. Oh yeah.
In December 1804, in the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris, Napoleon Bonaparte crowned himself Emperor of the French.
Very important thing there. He crowned himself, right? Because why did he do that? One of the things is that before that, Charlemagne, Charles the Great, king of the Franks, he was crowned by the Pope, and in the future, what is it? When Otto the First, Emperor of not Austria-Hungary, Holy Roman Empire, right? When it was created, all the kings there, and the schism between the Pope and the emperors is that the emperor appoints the Pope, but the Pope crowns the emperor. So who has the power? That's the big schism right there, right? Napoleon here crowns himself emperor, or king of France, right? No, emperor, yeah. So that's breaking the cycle in the Holy Roman Empire and in other kingdoms and empires, right? That the Pope crowns you and you support the Pope that comes into power in the Papal States, right? So that's a little background there, nice.
Europe had never seen such a sudden and dramatic rise to power.
On merit.
A son of impoverished Corsican nobility,
yeah,
to military dictator of France.
I think this image, I think he's crossing the Alps. This is when he's crossing the Alps, right? I think in real life, he was on a donkey, I think. Not a horse that's doing a wheelie, right? I believe so, yeah.
In little more than 10 years.
Okay.
Revolution and war had cleared Napoleon's path to the throne.
Yep.
War would dominate his 10-year reign.
Oh yeah. I mean, war has already dominated the last decade, or even more, right? So, yeah.
Unprecedented in history,
yeah,
that would leave millions dead,
yeah,
and a continent in turmoil.
Yeah. I mean, the continent was already in turmoil, right? It was only a point or a time when that would break, the breaking point, right? Same with almost 110 years, 109 years in the future, from 1805, right? Beginning of World War One, there was a breaking point. A year before the World War One, right? Second Baltic War, breaking point, or the first Baltic War was a Balkan War, right? Breaking point. There's always these breaking points. That's what happened when you have absolute power, right? Like a king or a dictator, right? There's always a breaking point.
Eight months after Napoleon's coronation, the French Empire and its Spanish ally were at war with Britain.
Yeah, you see now, like in the future, you have the Republic here, north of France, which is a puppet state by the French. You have the Kingdom of Italy. Spain is allied with France, not against them, right? It had changed since 1793, right?
and Napoleon had assembled an army of 180,000 men along the Channel coast.
Wow.
But as long as the British Royal Navy ruled the seas, invasion was impossible.
I mean, if this was the time of the First Punic War, and France was Rome, right? France would just invade Britain and lose 100,000 men and just do it again until they invaded, right? But this is different, so, you know. I mean, I like these cartoons / propaganda, right? The French are scared and the British are tall and have cannons on the walls, right? Yeah, nice.
But nor could Britain challenge France on land.
Exactly.
And so British Prime Minister William Pitt tried to build a European coalition against Napoleon, using diplomacy and gold.
Oh, they had a lot of gold.
Britain would prove Napoleon's most steadfast enemy, and its press delighted in relentless mockery of the French Emperor.
Yeah.
Britain and France were old rivals in Europe and overseas. But now, Pitt feared Napoleon's conquests had made France too powerful. The French Emperor had to be defeated, and Europe's balance of power restored if there was ever to be lasting peace.
But what do you mean balance of power? Balance of power on whose benefit? They can say that Napoleon was too powerful. But too powerful against who? I guess so. I guess he can rampage all of Europe and no one can stop him except all of Europe, right? But I don't think he did that. I think if they would have made peace, they just would have made peace. And I think they would have become allies, actually, like they do in the future, right? But I don't know. A balance of power to kings in Europe, right? That is the difference, right? France wanted to expand republics-ish, although they have an absolute emperor, dictator, king, whatever, right? But they want to establish republics under France. Britain wants to have Europe in sort of disarray, but are under kings and princes as absolute dictators-ish, right? In Europe. I don't know where the balance of power... okay, I guess so.
Pitt found willing allies in Europe, among
Ferdinand,
monarchs who
Naples, Gustav
despised
Adolf,
Napoleon as a product of the
Alexander,
French Revolution and a dangerous
Francis.
threat to the existing order.
Yeah.
Austria
Inbred
harboured
Francis,
the
nice.
deepest grievances, having seen her influence in Germany and
Oh, yeah.
Italy steadily eroded by French victories. The final straw came in May 1804, when Napoleon had also crowned himself King of Italy in Milan.
I guess you
Austria,
can do that.
Russia, Sweden and Naples joined Britain in an alliance known as the Third Coalition,
Okay.
and devised an ambitious plan for a series of joint offensives against France.
I mean, this is the first Napoleonic War, right? The two coalitions before, Napoleon won great victories under those, but he wasn't the sole ruler of France then. So that's not Napoleonic Wars. That's the coalition wars, the two first ones, right? Although be it, France came on top of both of those and survived. Not all thanks to Napoleon, but mostly in battle thanks to Napoleon, right? Okay.
The main attack would be made by a combined Austro-Russian army, advancing across the Rhine into France.
Russia have to walk a long
But
way.
Napoleon got word of their plan, acted with typical speed and decision.
Yep.
He was determined to strike first, before the Allies could join forces.
Makes sense.
And ordered his
so
army,
he's not reacting.
now renamed La Grande Armée, to march to the River Rhine.
to save
His
Bavaria.
target was the Austrian army of General Mack, which had made a premature advance against Bavaria, a French ally, and was now dangerously isolated from the other Allied armies.
Makes sense, makes sense.
Napoleon ordered Marshal Murat, his famously flamboyant cavalry commander, to make feint attacks through the Black Forest, while the rest of his army, advancing at speed, enveloped Mack's army from the north.
Okay, getting on the flanks, yeah. Okay,
that summer, Napoleon's Grande Armée was at its most formidable. Well-trained, highly motivated, its regiments at full strength. What's more, it had been newly reorganized according to the corps system, later imitated by virtually every army in the world.
Yeah, like we use today.
Each corps, commanded by a marshal, was a mini-army of 15 to 30,000 soldiers, with its own infantry, cavalry, artillery, and supporting arms, such as reconnaissance, engineers, and transport.
I mean, this is amazing. You can compare this to Julius Caesar, right? He also sort of had that, right? Although they were much larger, right? But it's sort of a corps system, not really, but you know. This is very genius.
This meant each corps could march and fight for a limited time independently, allowing Napoleon to break with the old doctrine of keeping his army concentrated and advance with his corps widely dispersed.
Could outflank
this
anybody.
Helped to disguise his real objective and increased movement speed, because the army could advance along multiple roads and live off the land, taking its supplies from scattered villages, rather than relying on slow-moving supply wagons.
I mean, that is true. However, one flaw in that, live off the land, what happens if there's no food from the land to live off of? Right? That's a flaw. Then you have to rely on the slow wagons. And if you're caught off there, then you're basically under siege. But not really, right?
When the enemy's main force was located, the army could quickly concentrate for battle.
Yep.
This is how Napoleon's army was able to move at a speed that often surprised and disorientated his enemies.
That makes sense.
Mack didn't realize the danger he was in until it was too late.
I mean, yeah.
Napoleon's fast-moving corps crossed the Danube behind him and surrounded his army.
Yep. I mean, the Russians, what are they going to do?
Mack launched a series of poorly coordinated counterattacks. But despite some desperate fighting,
Look at
the Austrians couldn't break out of the trap.
Wow.
Mack hoped that Kutuzov's Russian army could arrive in time to save him.
Yeah.
But the Russians were still 160 miles away.
I mean...
And so, at Ulm, on the 19th of October, just 6 weeks into the war, Mack surrendered his army to Napoleon.
Wow.
The French took nearly 60,000 Austrian prisoners.
Oh my...
And Napoleon had struck his first devastating blow against the coalition.
I mean, yeah.
Russian General Mikhail Kutuzov was an experienced and wary commander, more cautious than Mack. His army was exhausted after its 900-mile march from Russia.
Oh my...
But hearing of the Austrians' surrender at Ulm, and knowing he wasn't strong enough to face Napoleon alone, he immediately ordered a retreat.
Okay, good.
Napoleon pursued.
Yeah, which he should do.
The Russians fought several sharp rearguard actions, but could not save the Austrian capital, Vienna, which the French occupied on the 12th of October. Kutuzov slipped away to Olmütz in today's Czech Republic, where he was joined by reinforcements, as well as Emperor Alexander of Russia and Emperor Francis of Austria in person. Napoleon was furious that Kutuzov had escaped. By now his army was also exhausted and far from home, with winter approaching.
Morale lower.
He needed to force a decisive battle quickly. Fortunately for him, the overconfident 27-year-old Russian emperor sought the glory of battle overriding the concerns of his veteran commander, General Kutuzov.
Okay, that's not good.
With the Allied army closing in, Napoleon ordered his corps to rapidly concentrate on a battlefield he had carefully selected,
That's
near the
good
town
for him, yeah.
of Austerlitz.
Ah.
Napoleon oversaw the dispositions of his army late into the night, then grabbed a few hours' sleep beside a campfire. Dawn would mark the first anniversary of his coronation as emperor, and promised a battle that would make or break his young empire.
Wow. Thunderclap. Okay. Let's see then. Wow. I mean, just look at this. They've animated this beautifully. You can see almost everything, and it's a topographical map, right? Okay, so Napoleon is there. Okay, so Russians and Austrians are there. Okay.
The morning of the 2nd of December 1805 was cold and bright, with a heavy mist.
Yeah.
Two armies of near equal size faced each other across a 7-mile wide battlefield.
Napoleon has
but the Allies held the high ground of the Pratzen Heights.
That could...
While French Third Corps under Marshal Davout was still marching to the battlefield.
Okay.
Seeing Napoleon's thinly stretched right flank, the Allies planned a large-scale attack from the Pratzen Heights to steamroller the French right, before swinging round to envelop Napoleon's army.
Yeah, you can see
Little did they know, Napoleon was counting on his weak right wing luring the Allies into just such a move.
And then he goes
to
their right
he would launch his own attack on the Pratzen Heights to cut the Allied army in half. His bold plan relied on his correct prediction of Allied movements, the speedy arrival of Davout's Third Corps on his right, and a perfectly timed counterattack. The battle began around 7 a.m. as Austrian troops of General Kienmayer's advance guard.
I mean, I just want... I don't know if this is a weird thing, but I don't know if it's just looking back in history and being amazed, right? But I don't know, I want to be in Napoleonic wars, right? Like a soldier. I don't know why. Of course, it's a 2020 vision, sort of like back into time, into history. Like you glorify it somehow to say, oh, it wouldn't be that painful or whatever. Although your friends probably get their leg blown off, arms blown off, head blown off. You get shot once and they have to amputate your arm, whatever it is, right? Disease. I still just want to be in the Napoleonic Wars. Either in the French army or in the British army, I think. I don't know why, but it's just amazing.
Clashed with French troops defending the village of Telnitz.
Okay. Going good so far?
In the face of overwhelming odds, the French fought stubbornly and bravely.
A guy is lying on the floor. Is that Jesus? What is that? Is that Jesus? Oh, look at that. Look at that. I know this is a painting. I don't know if that guy to the right, that's probably shot. I don't know if that's dramatic or if that is how you react when you're shot, right? I mean, look, how many guys are there? Like 4 guys, 2 of them have rifles that they are using or can use. And I mean, look just outside, the overwhelming force. Amazing paintings. I think I need to get a Napoleonic Wars painting. I don't know why. It just feels amazing to look at them. They look like they're like greedy somehow. Like they're not dirty, but they look like authentic, right? I don't know.
Back. But the Allies, instead of carrying out their great enveloping attack, did nothing. The morning mist and the late arrival of orders had led to confusion and delay.
There's always
another
confusion
hour
in war.
before the first 3 Allied columns were on the move.
That's a problem when you have an combined ally army that's sort of don't have a centralized figure that's going to coordinate with the different armies that speak different languages, different culture, different tactics in war, right? Austria-Hungary has had that same problem in their own army, not multiple armies outside their country. In their own army, they have different languages. They had translators for different soldiers in the army. Yeah, this is bad coordination. But they can still make it, but they're running out of time because Napoleon probably gonna strike.
Soon, fierce fighting erupted around Sokolnitz village and castle.
Yeah, that looks like a massive battle.
Marshal Davout's corps, which had just force-marched 70 miles in 2 days, now
70 miles. 70, I guess it's imperial miles. 35 miles in 1 day. Force march. Wow. Amazing, stunning. I mean, the Russians probably did the same from Russia to Austria.
arrived to strengthen the French right wing. Around 9 a.m, his lead infantry brigade appeared suddenly through the mist and retook Telnitz, before being driven back in turn by Austrian hussars.
Okay.
2 more of Davout's brigades reinforced French troops at Sokolnitz.
Yeah. I mean, they have the little lake there to their left flank, the French. So that's good for them, right? Yeah, that they have to. Napoleon have to be quick here because his right flank looks a little weak. But I don't know in detail what it looks like, right?
The mist began to clear. Napoleon saw that, as he'd hoped, the Allied left was moving off the Pratzen Heights.
Yeah.
And he ordered Marshal Soult's 4th Corps to begin its attack.
Just straight up
To the
bombardment.
alarm of Allied commanders, 2 French infantry divisions, until now hidden by the mist, were suddenly seen advancing straight towards the Allied centre.
And when they're marching down to the left,
General Kutuzov was forced to hurriedly organize a defense of the heights, using troops of 4 column.
Okay.
2 hours of bloody fighting followed.
Oh my! Look at that! Imagine being there. What? Wow! Look at that. Cavalry. You have some infantry. Fires. You have a church. More fire. You have infantry fighting infantry. Just look at that painting. Wow.
Musket fire was so rapid and furious that both sides were soon low on ammunition.
Makes sense.
Turned to the bayonet.
Oof. Hand-to-hand combat.
By 11 a.m, the French, with the advantage in training and discipline, had secured the heights and driven a deep wedge into the Allied position.
Yeah, they're cut off.
To the north, a giant cavalry battle developed.
Oh my!
While a Russian force from General Bagration's advance guard captured the village of Bosenitz, before it was halted by cannon fire from the Santon Hill.
I was gonna say, I mean, they are basically on his flank. They're on his left flank, almost cutting him off, right? But Napoleon, or I don't know, the guy who's in charge of the cannons, but probably they are protecting his left flank, basically, because there's a huge cavalry battle there. Jesus, wow.
A decisive charge by 6 regiments of French heavy cavalry finally drove back the Allies, allowing Marshal Lannes' 5 Corps to move forward and seize Blasowitz and Krug.
And they took the left flank.
Now, Grand Duke Constantine, commanding the Russian Imperial Guard, led forward this last Allied reserve in a desperate bid to reclaim the Pratzen Heights.
That would make sense. That makes sense.
A battalion of the French 4th Line Regiment was charged down by Russian Guard cavalry, losing its Eagle standard in bloody fighting.
That's very important for morale and to concentrate your unit, the eagle, right?
Napoleon, who'd moved up to the heights, sent in his own guard cavalry.
Makes sense.
In this grim melee between the elite horsemen of both armies,
Yeah.
the French finally prevailed.
Okay.
Napoleon had broken the Allied centre.
Yeah.
Now, to close the trap on the Allied left wing,
Oh
still locked in
my.
heavy fighting around Sokolnitz.
That looks like a massacre. Their left flank.
Around 2 p.m, Napoleon ordered 4 divisions to swing south and cut off their retreat.
I mean, imagine being one of the soldiers there on either French or the Russian side, fighting there on the left wing there, or the Allies' left wing, right? You're slaughtering each other there, being probably exhausted, both sides, and then you have your backs to another French army that's coming behind you. Where's your only escape? South? Can you break through the north? But then Napoleon has his army there as well. So I mean, either you win and push west, but I don't know where you're gonna go from there. This looks... yikes.
General Buxhowden, commanding the Allied left,
Oh my, they're surrounded.
only now saw the danger he was in.
Yeah.
Attacked from 3 sides, the only escape was south.
Yeah, makes sense.
Many of his
yeah.
troops were forced to flee across frozen ponds.
Across the frozen...
French artillery opened fire, trying to smash
Okay.
the ice with their cannonballs.
I guess that
About
makes sense.
200 men and dozens of horses drowned in the freezing water.
Jesus.
But not the many thousands of Napoleon's propaganda.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
The French Emperor had won a brilliant victory.
Yeah.
His army had taken more than 10,000 prisoners and captured 45 enemy standards.
45.
Thousands
But I mean-
of dead and wounded of all sides
Yeah.
littered the battlefield. Many left untended.
Look at that. Look at those numbers. I wonder what happens with those French prisoners. Right? 570. What happens to them after such a major defeat? I wonder what happens with them, yeah? Wow. I mean, of course there's more wounded than casualties, right? But wow. Yeah, I mean, Allied, wow. I mean, the bigger you are, the harder you fall, but I thought the Allies had actually a little less troops than the French. Wow.
Did for days.
Yeah, just lying there.
The Battle of the Three Emperors, as it became known, was a crushing blow to the Third Coalition.
2nd of
As
December.
Russian forces retreated back to Russia, Francis I of Austria was forced to accept a humiliating settlement with France, agreeing to pay a 40 million franc indemnity and give up more territory in exchange for peace. But meanwhile, news had reached Napoleon of a disastrous Franco-Spanish defeat at sea off Cape Trafalgar. British Admiral Lord Nelson, at the cost of his own life, had masterminded a victory so complete that it ensured British naval dominance, not just for the rest of the war, but for the next 100 years.
That is very true. And what I said in the last Napoleon series video about Gibraltar, they actually got that. The Brits got that after the Spanish what was it, War of Succession, right? That's when they got Gibraltar. So they already had Gibraltar here, the Brits. I mean, that's a major blow, because France already couldn't invade, like we saw in the beginning of the video. They couldn't invade Britain, and Britain couldn't fight the French on land. And now after this defeat, wow. And Lord Nelson is regarded as highly regarded as a very good, or one of the best admirals in, I guess, in the Western world at least, right? For the next 100 years, yes, because World War One, the Germans are gonna build up their navy, the French are gonna build up their navy, the US. Yeah. Wow.
Britain, master of the sea. Napoleon, unbeatable on land. The whale and the elephant, neither able to challenge the other in its own domain.
Like I said, yep.
When William Pitt received news of Napoleon's victory at Austerlitz, he's supposed to have said, "Roll up that map of Europe. It will not be wanted these 10 years.
10 years to the date.
A month later, Pitt was dead.
Wow.
But his warning that Europe faced another 10 years of war and upheaval was to prove prophetic.
Yeah. I mean, that was amazing. Battle of Austerlitz, very famous battle. And it is kind of the... maybe one of that the Brits said that the balance of power shifted, right? And they wanted to restore it back to balance of power. Austerlitz proves almost their point, right? Oh, he's so powerful. He defeated the Russians and Austrians at the same time, right? And he defeated at the Battle of Ulm as well. Before that, the Austrians took a whole army, right? I can understand their point now, but yeah, okay, yeah. Alright, but I'll see you in the next video.